Welcome to the Leverage Your Potential podcast. This podcast is hosted by the Director and Assistant Director of Menlo College's Office of Internships, Career Services, and Study Abroad, Dylan Houle and Kelly Davis, in partnership with Menlo's Content Creation Club.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Leverage Your Potential. I'm your host, Dylan Houle, Director of the Internships, Career Services, and Study Abroad Office. Really excited to be here today with three wonderful guests. Solin Piearcy, Menlo alumna and recent grad. Hi, Solin.
Hi.
And also with co-founders of Ramped Careers, Manoj, Jonna, and Leonard. Hi, Manoj. Hi, Danny.
Hey, Dylan. So glad to be here.
Hey there. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us today. We have a wonderful episode, and what we're going to be talking about today is business development, how to break into that profession, how Ramped Careers, through their fellowship program, helps recent graduates get into business development and complement the education that a student receives at their alma mater in their undergraduate years. And Solin, I believe, is one of the first to go through that fellowship. So we're really excited to talk about how that company came to be, what the experience is like, and what other students can learn from it. So let's just jump right in. Solin, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about where you're from, your background, and where you're currently working and your job title.
Yeah, Dylan. Thank you so much for bringing me on. Well, I'm Solin Piearcy. As Dylan has mentioned, I am a recent graduate as of this year in May. I've graduated with an emphasis in marketing and HR, and I'm originally from San Jose, California, born and raised, never really left. And I found out about Menlo when I was wrestling in high school. So I signed my senior year of high school, went to Menlo, loved all 4 years there. And now I'm currently working at Transifex as an SDR, a sales development representative.
Excellent. Thanks for that introduction. And I can't wait to get more into your background, especially some of the wrestling activities you've been a part of, because I know that's a big part of your life and has influenced you in many different ways. Manoj, Danny, can you introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about where you're from and also your role at Ramped Careers. We'll get a little bit into how Ramped Careers came to be, but just give us an overview of what you do on a day-to-day basis and what your role is.
Sure. I'll start, Dylan. This is Manoj. I'm based out of New York City. I love the energy of this place, and I'm one of three people behind Ramped Careers. As a co-founder, my role is to build and grow Ramped into a candidate-centric, verticalized labor marketplace. We truly believe that the world of recruiting will change for the better. And we believe that this will be driven by technology and democratized learning. And every day we wake up and think about ways that we can engage our candidates, our university partners, and our employer partners, bringing them all together to chart the path forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Manoj. And Danny.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Dylan, or having us on. This is awesome, and I'm excited to be here. So I'm Leonard. I am one of the other co-founders of Ramped Careers, and together with Manoj and Mitch, I also focus on. I don't want to jump on what Manoj said. He said it so eloquently. So pretty much that. But all three of us are really driving towards finding the absolute best quality candidates to put through our program and make sure that they are, at this point in time, geared and oriented towards sales and sales careers and the highest quality employers, places that our candidates will not only love today in their first role, but can see themselves growing into whatever roles they take on in sales or marketing or customer success in the future. So we want to find them exceptional homes that will ultimately, help them grow professionally and personally.
Excellent. Thanks for that overview and those introductions, all three of you. Really excited again for this conversation. And one thing I like about Ramped Careers is that emphasis on finding a good home, not just making a placement, but making a placement that's going to work for that student and really be foundational for their career. Solin, before we discuss your experience in the Ramped Careers Fellowship, let's just take a step back. You declared as a double major in marketing and in business management with an emphasis on HR. What motivated you to pursue those fields of study, and how do you feel they complement each other?
Yeah, so at first I actually came in with a focus just on marketing. And that's because I had a few cousins who majored in it, loved it, and I liked the idea of brand image and providing value to people. So when I was at Menlo, I kept my mind open to all of the majors and emphasis that were there. And I almost switched to accounting. For those who are listening, if you know Professor Little, she almost got me to switch to accounting.
Yeah,
But I really enjoyed. Oh, she was phenomenal. She was just amazing. But yeah, so almost did that, but I stuck with marketing because I really liked the main concept of, identifying the needs and wants out there, the specific groups of people, the product, where it's accessible. I like being a part of that main concept of the business. And then the promotion piece of it too. How I got into HR was in all honesty, I needed another field of study so that I could stay at Menlo for an extra year, so that I can wrestle. I was on track to graduate early, so I was looking for another field, and I fell in love with HR because I've always been interested in law, and I just love the idea of helping people overall. And that's why I think that these two fields actually complement each other. They both relate in the way of connecting with people, establishing relationships, and helping them by addressing their needs and their wants.
Yeah, I think that's so excellent. Marketing being something that's more external facing to the client and customer base, and human resources being more internal relationship building. I like how you saw the through line between those two. And that's fun that you actually pursued that double major almost out of an athletic necessity to get that extra year. Did I hear you right? That was why you got the HR major in there?
Yeah, that was right.
Manoj, Danny, when Ramped Careers is considering applicants, how important is the student's choice of major? When you were looking at Solin's application or other students' applications and you see marketing or HR, double major, single major, how valuable is that? How important is that? And have you noticed any correlation between a student's major and their success throughout the fellowship or careers in business development generally?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I'll take it, and Danny jump in for sure. One of the things that we had noticed was that there's really no correlation between a major and success in sales and business development. With that said, there's a bit of self-selection happening when folks choose a major such as marketing or business administration. There's a little bit of a self-selection happening, but we've seen similar success with folks that are communication majors, political science majors. You really just need to have a willingness to learn about sales and business development and a general interest in selling. But beyond that, unlike something like engineering or coding, there's really no one-to-one correlation between major and success.
Yeah. That we've found, and I've found in my previous history, I've interviewed thousands of salespeople throughout my career. So I've found that there is almost no correlation between the major they pick and the end result of becoming a super successful salesperson. The factors that actually become more important over time, those are things like, did they take on a leadership a leadership role in their collegiate or personal life? Did they, do they have athletics in their background? Do they want to succeed? Are they competitive in nature, but not to, a detriment to their personality or to others' personalities? Can they be a team player? So those are some of the things that we look for, not all of them, but some of them that are way more important or factor in more aggressively and are more impactful than just the major they take on. And frankly, as a side note, I've also found that the education in general, collegiate education, sometimes isn't important. Like we're happy to take folks that are out of high school that are super excited about sales and are very smart and want to get a head start, for financial reasons or other reasons. So it's been interesting interviewing so many salespeople to see kind of the commonalities amongst them.
I think both of you reinforce and validate something that I am telling students all the time, which is that your major doesn't necessarily dictate your future career. And it's really how you approach your education more generally, Danny, to your point about leadership roles and being engaged in various ways. Let's, if I may ask quickly, what did you major in, Danny? Where did you go to university, and did it harbinger your future career or not?
Yeah, I was just going to add that too. I was just going to say my major and what I ended up doing have nothing in common as well. So I graduated from the University of Michigan in 2009 in the heat of the last economic crisis. So I'm kind of getting flashbacks right now of what that looks like. And I know Manoj is smiling too, because he graduated around the same time. So I graduated with a finance and management degree from business school. And I took that and ran straight to selling online coupons at a small startup at the time called Groupon. And obviously now it's a public company, but I was around employee number 50, and that grew to 15,000 and went IPO. And I jumped into sales, and that was random for me. I had a buddy that worked at Groupon, and he said, "This place is awesome. There's a ton of folks just like us, our age. They're not wearing suits every day. It's a fun culture." And I was like, wow, sign me up. So I applied to every job on their job board at the time. And I got a call from the recruiter, and the recruiter was like, "Hey man, like you can't apply to every job. You're just not going to get a job here. But what we can offer you is an unpaid sales internship. Move down to Chicago." I was in Minneapolis at the time. "And if you do well, we'll give you a full-time role." And I jumped at that opportunity. I took it and didn't look back. I ended up doing well on the sales side, ended up one of the top sellers at the company, and then got promoted into management. And that was, in 2010 through 2012. And that kind of led me on this path to tech and sales and kind of the combination of the two.
Great story. And just blasting that job board until someone called you back. I like that.
Yeah, I mean that was naive at the time, although I think it ended up getting their attention. So I guess the learning there is persistence is key.
Absolutely. And Manoj, do you have a similar story? Did your educational journey serve as a harbinger for what you would end up doing professionally?
No, very non-linear journey. Similar to Danny, I went to school for accounting, practiced as a CPA for a couple of years, did some consulting work, went to law school. So I'm a lawyer by training, ended up never practicing law and instead going into investment banking. And then I said, scratch all of that, let me go join a startup and do everything. So I ended up stumbling my way into sales after taking a very non-linear path, and ended up discovering that I enjoy selling and I enjoy building and growing companies through the process of working at an early stage company. And so, and I have similar conversations with a lot of students. The decisions that you make when you're younger, sure, to some degree, it'll define what your next 10, 15 years will look like. But for the most part, it doesn't, as long as, you're willing to learn, grow, and get better. The world is yours for the taking.
The world is yours, so take it. Well said. Solin, academically, we've had the chance to know each other for going on 3 years. one thing I know about you is that you're a very strong student. Academically, you graduated top of your class, at the top of your, towards the top of your class, salutatorian. And I know that you were also very engaged outside the classroom, exactly what Manoj and Danny are saying. And a couple of your extracurricular activities, women's co-captain of the women's wrestling team, you were a resident assistant, you were a peer tutor. I know you were engaged in a few other things along the way. Looking back, which classes or campus activities had the most impact on your career and professional development?
Wow. That's a really, really good question there, Dylan. I feel like I could speak on this for forever. There was a lot that helped me. Yeah. Well, I would have to say, like, wrestling, as you've mentioned, was a really big part of my life at Menlo. That's my family. Those are my sisters. Those are my supporters. They've been with me when I went through everything, pretty much, that I did at Menlo, and they still continue to support me. But as Danny has mentioned, it's given me a chance for leadership. He's talked about leadership. He's talked about that competitive edge. And I definitely got that from wrestling. And the whole accountability piece, the communication, persevering through adversity, that's really developed me as an individual holistically. And I was able to transfer those experiences and skills into my, professional career. So it's phenomenal. I've loved wrestling, still do, planning on going back every so often when the pandemic subsides. But also, being a residential assistant has helped me in many similar ways as to wrestling. It's, I was able to connect with a lot of people and connect them with the right resources for whatever questions they may have. I was also able to execute my own events and collaborate with others while doing that. My favorite event that I've hosted was the haunted house this past year. It was extremely fun. It was a lot of coordination, a lot of recruiting that I had to do, but I want to say we had about 100 people come out around Halloween night. So that's a really good turnout for that time. And as you know, as an RA, there's always that piece of enforcing policy with the interest of safety for everybody on the campus. So it's also enhanced my communication skills in being professionally assertive. As far as like classes and courses, I remember, I think this is where we actually met, Dylan. It was internship 120, career management, I believe.
That's
Am I
right.
correct?
That's right.
Yeah. That class was the foundation for me. I don't think I had a LinkedIn. My resume was not nearly as good as what it is now. And you've helped me, in the whole class, we've helped each other with building our professional resources, with networking. And now I have a great LinkedIn. I have a fantastic resume that I hope leaves a really good impression after people scan it for 10 seconds. And just career services in general, like your department, Dylan, is so helpful. And if I'm being honest, I didn't really leverage as much as I could have while I was at Menlo. But even with the amount that I've like interacted with career services, it's been extremely impactful, like Career Connect Day, which exposed me to networking professionally firsthand. And it got me a remote internship as a sophomore. And then networking with Menlo alumna who helped me get a great internship that was for credit at Sequoia Consulting Group in San Mateo. And that exposed me to like a work environment and, really helped me build more of that experience that I needed going into, the real world, the workforce. And then also the frequent emails that you guys have been sending. Like if it wasn't for your email, then I wouldn't have known about Ramped Careers and I wouldn't have, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So career services all the way for current students that are there, for incoming students, please look into that. That is a great resource on campus. Always welcome, always so helpful. As far as other courses, there was all my marketing classes with Professor Boveda. I've loved Professor Harding's business law and Dr. Sakurka's business ethics. She actually brought in a corporate defense attorney, and that was kind of the turning point of when I was like, okay, I'm going to go for HR, and I fell in love with it. Professor Gordon and Lovelace, they've helped me all the way with HR as well. And then Professor Mulvey's senior capstone class was extremely helpful. It helped me think holistically about the business, like strategies wise. And like, it's not limited just to one part, like marketing or finance or accounting, just everything in general. And that's helped me a lot at Transifex, especially because it's a smaller sized company and my sales team is very intimate. There's only about 4 of us right now. And it's helped me really like be an entrepreneur in a sense and take ownership of some initiatives that we're helping out with each other and even things that I've created. So that was very helpful as well. And then I want to say the most difficult class that I've had, it's not really a class, I'm not quite sure, but it was my senior thesis with Professor Mendelman. This past year, I pretty much did a thesis about eating disorders at Menlo College. It was very rewarding as much as challenging as it was. It was my initiative to conduct a student-driven research at Menlo to promote awareness about eating disorders in a safe environment. And that's helped me holistically as a person in my career development, because it's like my initiative, it had communication, it had everything that I've learned from Menlo. And I was able to produce something so relevant and so important to me and be able to share it with others and help others as well. The last thing, I know I said I could go on for days about the resources at Menlo, but Mr. B's psychology class, Creative Transitions, for all of you students out there, please take this class. It's so life-changing. Even though it may come off as just like an athletic type of course, you don't have to be an athlete to take this class. You don't even have to be a psych major. I wasn't a psych major, but it's so helpful. It's helped me with the abrupt and difficult transitions with, the pandemic cut the senior year for my class and not being able to wrestle at nationals. It was very difficult, but this class and what I've learned has helped me better transition during those situations in my life. And I've learned a lot about myself. And it's actually interesting too, because around the time we were talking about using athletic skills and transferring it in the workplace within that class with Mr. B, I was actually working with RAMP. I was working with Danny, Mitch, and Manoj. We were going through the interview process with Transifex. So it was pretty awesome how everything lined up just to be where it was at.
Solin, thank you for that overview. And what I take from your story is how many things happened kind of outside the classroom that were influential to you, but also inside the classroom with a guest speaker coming in one day and totally putting you on to human resources, or coming to Career Connect Day and meeting an employer or an alum who was able to connect you with some remote internships. And I love the advice that you're giving, which is college is not just about coming to class and doing your homework, right? I mean, this is what Danny and Manoj are saying as well. It's about a fully immersive experience in many ways, and you get out of it what you put into it. And I think your story is a great example. And I know all of the professors that you just name dropped are going to love hearing the wonderful things you just said about them. Can't wait to share this with them. Manoj, Danny, piggybacking on some of the things that Solin said, I'm wondering if you have any reflections on that, but also one of the things I know about being successful in sales is the ability to quickly build rapport with a client, with a customer. And a little example that I use from my own life when I'm talking with students about sales is when I was a restaurant server in New York City, one thing I would do before each shift is read the front page of the New York Times. And that allowed me to know who won the game, what business was going out of business, what was happening in politics. And I could make that small talk with clients in a very easy way. I'm wondering if you have any opinion on how important is it in sales to be well-rounded in that way, in the way that Solin is, wrestling, resident assistant, attending networking events, etc. And what's your perspective on that, and what advice would you give to students in that regard?
I think you captured it pretty well, Dylan. At the end of the day, people buy products and services, but as a salesperson, you're the vehicle that enables that transaction, right? So I might be buying a product, I might be buying the service, but I'm buying it from you as a person. And the heavy burden of evangelizing what it is that you're selling, it falls squarely on you. But stepping back, even outside of sales, it never hurts to be interesting. Being well-rounded will just add such richness to your life that regarding of the profession or the pathway that you choose, you should aim to be naturally curious. College is such a wonderful place to try different things. It's a perfect opportunity to experiment. There's not very many times in a person's life that you'll have that environment of 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years to test and experiment various things. You'll learn more about yourself through that process. You'll learn what you like, what you dislike. And so, from a very personal, at a personal level, it does make sense to be as well-rounded as possible. And with sales, of course, knowledge is everything. Researching your prospect, researching the company, being well prepared. To the example that you just mentioned, where you did a little bit of prep before you spoke to someone, I think that should carry well, regardless of the career path that you choose, whether it's sales or not sales. However, particularly for sales and business development, being well-rounded will position you for long-term success compared to others that are not. It gives you an edge.
Absolutely. And Danny, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Manoj captured it really nicely there too. So with sales, generally, it's until they figure out how robots can sell to robots. It's people selling to people. So when I coach, when I teach salespeople, the foundational, the fundamental, the basics of selling, it's really, you don't have to act like that super suave salesperson that you see in movies and you see on TV. And that actually, frankly, has given salespeople a bad rap that stigma still exists today. So what we saw in Solin and what we see in our other fellows is a well-roundedness, and that's what we screen for, where they have experiences that they can pull in from outside, whether it's travel experiences or leadership experiences, or simply, interests that are outside of what they're going to do professionally. So some are musically talented, some are into sports, some are very much into reading and finance. And that's awesome because it gives them the ability to communicate more effectively with a more diverse set of prospects. So we do think it's important, and I frankly think it's incredibly important to be well-rounded so that you can communicate with that wide audience, because you never know who your next prospect is going to be. You don't know their interests, so the more you're able to relate and share experiences, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. In one of the classes that we teach for the internship program, which Solin completed last year, was Cialdini's 6 Principles of Influence, and finding something in common with the other person is just so foundational, but you really have to kind of raise it to a conscious level in sales and marketing. It's like, what do I have in common with this person? What are their needs and motivations? How can I meet them? Solin, let's pivot now to your involvement in Ramped Careers. You're the first Menlo College student to go through the fellowship. Take us through the process from after you got that email from our office in Career Services, you applied, and then what happened? Take us from application to job offer at Transifex.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I remember I saw the Career Services email. I was actually in the athletic training room, and I was rehabbing, I don't know, one of my minor injuries before practice, and I was just scrolling through my inbox, and I'm like, oh, okay, Career Services. I looked at it, I read the whole thing, and I remember seeing, oh, like, this is a great opportunity. This is an online free sales course that helps you network. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So I clicked on the link. I saw the application. It was 3 questions, and they were really deep, insightful questions. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to fill this out after practice. We were getting ready for a competition. So I remember filling it out, like wondering when I'd hear back. And then when we were actually at the competition, I got the acceptance email, and I was so thrilled. I was so excited. And then time rolls around. I actually missed the initial meeting with all of the fellows and with the mentors. I think I reached out to Manoj and said I was at a different competition for wrestling and I couldn't make it, unfortunately. And that didn't hinder anything. They were very open. They helped me out with, jump starting everything. And I met the people of Rams through, email. And it was so fluid. The process of actually doing the online modules, the online courses was, at my own schedule. And there was always the support that I can reach out to one of them if I had any questions. They also assigned really helpful assignments, such as writing emails or cold calling, leaving a voicemail, things like that. And before I knew it, I was building my own sales portfolio. I felt a lot of like the Menlo Career Services resources in that regard is for Ramped, because it's like always there, always helping. And you don't even know it until you reflect on the process. You're like, oh, wow, like I've came a long way. But yeah, it was phenomenal. And I reached out and connected with Danny, who is my mentor. And I remember the first meeting, we just got to know each other. He asked me about my preferences, what I'm interested in, got to know me as like a person. And the next meeting that we had, he was like, okay, cool. I have a potential interview or like job process. I can connect you with someone. And I was like, awesome. This is great. Like I didn't even expect it. I was so shocked. I was honestly like dumbfounded how fast that process was. And and the next thing you know, I was like in that interview process while I was in school, and like the whole detailed modules, like the great foundation of SDRs that Rand provided me. It was really good because my now manager, Jake, he asked me some questions about what I knew, and like things and skills from that one class, Mr. B's class, that I can draw on, and prepping with Mitch, Manoj, and Danny about the interview process. It was so resourceful and it was great. It really prepped me up and cued me to go. And I like nailed that interview process, and that's where I am today. And I'm very thankful because this happened during a very unfortunate time in the world. So I'm very blessed, and I'm just so grateful to the opportunities that I have. I'm so grateful to Menlo, and I'm so grateful to those at Ramp. So yeah, thank you so much, Mitch, Manoj, and Danny. I know Mitch isn't here right now, but he was also very heavily involved with the process.
And Danny and Manoj, when you reflect on Solin's journey through your fellowship, Solin specifically, but all the students generally, what do you think are the qualities that made her successful and made the other students successful who ended up completing the fellowship and getting job offers? What's your perspective on what she brought to the table that other students should be bringing to the table if they want to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, Solin, first of all, I really appreciate that. That was so kind, and those words really mean a lot. And I know Manoj and I are just smiling all the way through this. So thank you for all of that. It really makes us feel great. Let's just be pretty blunt about it. Solin made it super, super easy on us. She stood out in many ways as a candidate from the very beginning, and just to name a few. And I hope this isn't too embarrassing, but she was the salutatorian of her graduating class. She was a wrestling co-captain or captain, a 4-time All-American, 2-time national champion, She sang the Star Spangled Banner at her virtual graduation. She ran tutoring sessions for others, was a peer tutor, a female athlete of the year. Like, she had all of the accolades. I think when we saw her application, we were like, oh my God, this is perfect. If we can find even one more Solin, that would be amazing. But beyond that, beyond what's on paper, because paper does look good, and those are definitely things we screen for. We screened, obviously, what I told you in the beginning, for leadership abilities, for taking the initiative, for competitive drive. Like, she checked so many boxes, so we're like, okay, this is great. But when we met her, I think what stood out is one, she was able to communicate those desires, those internal desires, effectively. So that led us to believe that she'd be great at communicating to others and to prospects. And then the thoroughness in which she attacked the course. I will tell you, it is, even within our course, we screen so that folks, are hard driving, high performing, and we want them to shine after the course. But Solin really separated herself from the pack in terms of the course as well, just with the thoroughness, the level of accountability she held herself to throughout the course, and frankly, the kind of the vigor that she took the practices and the relentlessness in which she attacked the mock calls, mock emails, mock voicemails. She wanted to get better. That showed, and it made it really easy to take that profile and her candidacy and pitch to our employer partners and our corporate partners.
And Manoj, did you have any reflections on?
Thank you so much for those kind of words as well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that that I'd add is that without our fellows, our program is nothing, right? I mean, we solely exist to connect, upskill, and help ultimately land our top talent the right kinds of jobs. And so the entire strength of our program, and ultimately the relationships that we have with our partner network of employers, it rests squarely on our fellows. And so I cannot stress the importance enough. We're successful if and only if our fellows are successful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's something that resonates with us here at Menlo College as an institution. We're only as successful as our alumni are as they enter into the workforce and into the community. Solin, take us to present day. You're working at Transifex now in sales and business development. You've been in the role, I understand, for about 2 months. Do you feel, I mean, I get the sense from all that you've said already that you felt well prepared by Menlo College and by Ramped Careers for this opportunity. Perhaps you can take us through, are there any aspects of the job that you couldn't have learned at Menlo College or through Ramped Careers that you're learning on the job? I'm thinking about other students that might be listening now who are wondering, well, what's the workplace like? What's the workforce like? Am I learning everything I need to know in college? What's been your experience in terms of what were you well prepared for and what are you learning on the job?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first and foremost, Menlo has helped me be well prepared for everything in my eyes. It was a really, holistic individual development, not just as like my career, but as a person. I've really grown and I've seen that. And then Ramped Careers was like, it really narrowed down into sales, things that, in all honesty, Menlo didn't really teach things about sales in that regard, like business development. So I learned like the structure of that and the foundation from Ramped. And Ramped was really good at preparing me for that as well, and even address like, things will be different in the workplace because each company has their own process, each organization has their own sales tech stack, what they use to actually do things. So yeah, to your point, very well prepared, but there's always going to be learning. There's always going to be learning on the job. I know Danny has mentioned Solved, his company, and that's how he connected me with Transifex. He's actually helped Transifex with their sales tech stack. So I'm learning that as of right now. But let me take a step back. Well, Transifex, we are a localization translation management platform, and it's been in this space for about 12 years now. It's in the SaaS industry. And what Transfex does is it offers a tool for continuous localization, so that pretty much it helps organizations take their digital content, like an app, like a gaming app, or like a marketing website. It could be for any industry. It could be from like SaaS again, or it could be like just a game like Mortal Kombat. But pretty much anything, and they way so that the companies can reach more audiences, and then the end users have a greater experience. So that's what Transifex pretty much does in a nutshell. I still have a lot to learn.
Solin,
yeah, and as my role.
let me stop you. Did I hear you say Mortal Kombat?
Yes, Mortal Kombat.
So take us through that one more time. What does Transifex do with things like Mortal Kombat? That just caught my attention.
Yeah, no worries. It's actually interesting because we have some gaming companies. That's actually what I've been doing right now. I was brought in as an SDR, sales development rep, for outbound, going to people, reaching out to them, seeing if we can help benefit their process. And I've reached out to gaming companies because they're doing really well right now during this pandemic. So been reaching out to them, and sometimes they have like games they want to translate into different languages, and that's where the localization piece comes in. That's where Transfex can help streamline that process so they can translate and localize their content, their digital content, which in this case, let's say it's Mortal Kombat. And they can translate it into numerous languages, up to 100, or not even 100, like 450 or more, I think is what Transfex has to manage and streamline. So they can pretty much take any digital content and make it into a broader audience, but in, again, a more tailored way to where native speakers of different languages can access those resources as well.
I love that. I mean, such an important tool and business model in a globalized economy that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for sharing that. Manoj, Danny, how do you develop relationships with employers like Transifex? In career services, half of the job is working with students and half of the job is working with employers, and then trying to make that connection. There's elements of it that can be really challenging. There's people on the employer side, high turnover in those recruiting positions, 2, 3, 4 years. Then you have to build a relationship anew. How do you develop those relationships and keep those relationships constant year to year to year?
That's a good question, Dylan. If you step back and we ask ourselves, why is it that employers want to work with us? It really comes down to 3 simple reasons. The first is that we deeply understand what they are looking for in their employees. In this case, we deeply understand what they're looking for in their sales and development talent. The second reason is we know what it takes to be a good sales professional. We know what it takes to be a good BDR, SDR, MDR, whatever the job spec it is. We know it because we've done it ourselves. We know it because we've hired plenty of SDRs and BDRs in our lives. And we know it because we've trained a lot of these folks. And so not only do we understand what they're looking for, we also get what it takes to be a good sales professional. And then finally, our program, both in terms of the content and our rigorous screening methods, it ends up de-risking the recruitment process for employers. It dramatically reduces the likelihood that they end up hiring someone that's A, not a good fit for that particular company, B, not very good at their job, has to leave the company or perform at a subpar level. All of that risk is vastly reduced. And so these are the reasons why employers tend to like us, right? And we, again, have demonstrated time and over again that our fellows are patently better than any other candidate that they may employ or recruit on their own. And so, you know, it's something to do with momentum. The more that we can demonstrate that a ramped fellow is someone that you can trust and someone that can hit the ground running faster than anyone else, the easier it becomes for an employer to have these long-standing relationships with us. In many ways, you know, it's no different than any other company trying to connect with their customers. We employ, you know, a similar approach. Let's target a pain point that they have, and let's do a stellar job in solving for that pain point, and we trust that they'll keep coming back to us over and over again.
Absolutely. I think you guys obviously have a clear advantage, being that sales is the name of your game and ramped is the product you're selling. So it's kind of clear that you'll be successful in developing these relationships, as we have seen. Thank you all for this really insightful conversation about the Ramped Careers Fellowship. Solin, your experience going through it. Manoj and Danny for setting it up and making this opportunity possible for students. One question we always ask at the end of all of our podcasts is, what is something that you are reading, watching, or listening to right now that you think would be valuable for our listeners, which is primarily undergraduate students? What would be valuable for them to read, watch, or listen to? And Danny, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so right now I'm reading Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Frankly, I'm about halfway, a little more than halfway through the book, and I wish I would have read it when I was 20, maybe 18. It's an amazing book that I guess it wasn't out then. So, but right when it came out, it was when I wish I would have read it, because it's a great book that shares a bit about behavioral economics, tons of information about human nature, and it's got a little bit of a finance slant. And though I took the sales tech career avenue, I am still very much interested in finance and markets. So it's a great read if you're into human psychology, human nature, behavioral economics, or finance.
Thank you for that suggestion. Manoj, what are you reading, watching, or listening to right now?
Well, I started rereading a book that I had read a long time ago because I felt that now was a good time for me to restart my relationship with that book. I recommend everyone to read Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. It's written by two former U.S. Navy SEALs, and it's about adopting everything that they had learned through the Navy SEAL training process and through their various deployments as principles that they've used in the battlefield and bringing it back to life and business. But, you know, the underlying concept of the book, without sharing too much of it, is how do you embrace this idea? How do you embrace this concept of extreme accountability at a personal level, regardless of what's happening around you? I think some of the challenges that I personally see myself today is that there's so many things happening outside with coronavirus, with the economy, that are truly outside of my control, that it's very easy to feel like your life is spinning out of your hands. I think what the book encourages people to do is to look inwards and see what are the things that you can control and be accountable to your own self at a level that most people are not used to. And it's such an incredibly practical read, and I recommend that everyone reads it.
I will definitely check that out. One thing I'm reading right now is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, former lead FBI negotiator. And I think there are concepts of both of the books you recommend that he draws on in his own book. Thanks for those recommendations. Solin, last recommendation goes to you. What are you reading, watching, or listening to right now?
Yeah. First, I want to give shout outs to the Menlo community authors. I've been reading Yen's novel, A Hunter's Game, and as well as Professor Mendelman's work that they both recently published actually. But Professor Mendelman's work is Modern Sentimentalism, Affect, Irony, and Female Authorship in Interwar America. They're both great reads and, supporting Menlo all the way. But as for what I'm reading more for my workplace and career development, my now manager actually suggested for me to read The Challenger Sale. I believe it's by Matthew Dixon. Pretty much, it's about like, they talk about 5 types of salespeople, and the most efficient is called the challenger, is what the book calls it. And the challenger is the most efficient and successful because they have two-way communication. They listen, and they actually listen to people's needs, wants, and even if they don't need or want anything, they still listen to what they have to say and then present different, challenging yet educational perspectives so they can help people achieve better outcomes. And I think this is a great read, even if it's, you know, especially for people that are interested in sales and are in sales roles. But I think it's a great read in general because it's very applicable to everyday life.
Great recommendations, and really glad to hear that you're still keeping up with Menlo College publications and authors. That's awesome. Appreciate that. Thank you all very much for speaking with us today. I know that the students and alumni who listen to this are going to get a lot out of it, and hopefully we can send more students and recent grads through the Ramped Careers Fellowship and achieve the same type of success that Solin is enjoying today. And thank you, everyone. This has been another episode of Leverage Your Potential, Menlo College Career Services podcast. You can find all of our episodes on Spotify, Anchor, and other places where podcasts are found. You can also visit our blog, blog.menlo.edu/career-services. Have a great day.